Am I the asshole for being offended that my daughter called me ugly? This isn't a big deal, but I feel like I'm going crazy over it. Yesterday at dinner, my daughter, 15 female, was telling my wife, 40 female, and I, 45 male, about a guy she likes in school and she thinks he likes her back. My wife and I were happy for her and I would support her liking anyone that treats her right and makes her happy. She was telling us how he's smart, funny, and has a great six-pack. I'm used to the girl talk. My wife laughed and said something along the lines of, as long as he's a good person. My daughter replied, well yeah, but looks are also important. I don't want to end up with someone like daddy. I asked her what she meant by that. I don't remember her exact words, but it was along the lines of that I'm round, bald and short. There was no immediate just kidding from her. I told her that that wasn't a nice thing to say too and that she should apologize. Before she said anything though, my wife chimed in teasing that guys were always so sensitive. My daughter laughed. I usually would immediately address this kind of situation, but I was pretty upset and didn't want to scream or cry. I know that's so lame. I stayed mostly silent for the rest of dinner. A bit of background, I've recently been feeling more self-conscious. I'm not ugly even if I was. I have other qualities to make up for it. And I know that my wife adores me, but I've definitely noticeably gained some weight and lost some hair. My wife is as stunning and youthful as the day I met her, and my daughter is the spitting image of her. However, I have a feeling that if my daughter insulted her appearance she would be very offended and expect me to back her up. Before bed, I addressed the issue with my wife. I explained that it hurt my feelings, that I want to teach my daughter to be kind to others, and that it would mean a lot if we could both talk to my daughter about why saying that was not right. My wife didn't take me seriously at all. Among the things she said was that the best way to make someone stop teasing you is to ignore it. I don't want to treat my daughter like a middle school bully. And that she, my wife, was also materialistic at that age but grew out of it on her own. She also said that I was asking for it by asking her what she meant. I told my wife that I was disappointed in her and I would be talking to my daughter alone when she comes home from school today. I plan on talking to my daughter today, both because I'm still offended and I really don't want her to say that to anyone else. I don't plan on punishing her, just having an honest conversation and seeing where it goes. Nonetheless, I'm partially wondering if I'm the asshole for escalating the situation since it's a one-off occurrence. Not the asshole. WTF is wrong with the two of them? Go in there and call them fat and then when they freak out and get upset say that women always get so easily offended. That'll showcase their hypocrisy. I don't plan on punishing her. Why not? That's how children learn, consequences. Totally not the asshole. What your daughter said was totally rude and uncalled for. And your wife shouldn't be so okay with her saying that either. Not the asshole, even if she was joking, that's a behavior that needs to be put to rest before she starts talking about others that way. Regardless of how someone looks, it's not right to judge them solely on that. Not the asshole. Your wife needs to have your back. Your daughter was just being a dumb teenage girl and obviously wouldn't find a middle-aged man attractive, so I wouldn't take it too personally. But I agree you should speak to her so she understands words can hurt. Not the asshole. The real asshole here is your wife. Like a big, gaping one. Not the asshole. It's a huge problem when we tell men, boys that they're being too sensitive when someone makes hurtful comments. Your wife's behavior is really disappointing and I think sitting your daughter down and explaining that she upset you is an excellent idea. Not the asshole. Being materialistic at that age doesn't mean also being cruel. Not the asshole. Neither your daughter nor your wife realize that their words hold meaning and just because they can throw words out doesn't mean that you won't get hurt. She also said that I was asking for it by asking her what she meant. Asking for what exactly? Asking to be called ugly? Location flag, location flag. You need to teach your daughter not to be so shallow. Clearly your wife doesn't care, so it's up to you. Not the asshole. I mean, you shouldn't particularly be offended, as no teenage girl will find any man over 40, and more than likely anyone over 18, handsome, and especially not their dad. That said, your daughter shouldn't be calling anyone ugly, and your wife shouldn't be condoning it. That's something to address. As someone who made a similar but different comment to their mother at dinner one night, you could probably do good by expressing to her how your feelings were hurt. I think at that age, speaking from my own situation, it's not easy to realize that parents are humans with pride, shame, and every other emotion. So often parents are like gods, or boulders, in kids' eyes. If you're curious how my situation turned out, my sister told me she saw my mom crying about it, and I still feel guilty to this day. But I didn't get the chance to apologize because she never brought it up again. And I didn't have the maturity to say something. Edit, nah. Not the asshole. I think at 15 it's perfectly acceptable to be told when you have said something hurtful and be accountable for that. I think sitting her down and explaining what she said hurt is the right thing to do. Shucked your wife is hit supportive on this. This is a great lesson to teach your daughter. Among the things she said was that the best way to make someone stop teasing you is to ignore it. She probably wouldn't say this if she was the one being teased. And that she, my wife, was also materialistic at that age but grew out of it on her own. But she obviously hasn't grown out of it and seems to have passed on the trait to your daughter. Besides, that's not being materialistic, it's being superficial. Both traits are just as unattractive. She also said that I was asking for it by asking her what she meant. Victim blame much? Not the asshole. A good talk is definitely in order, not just with your daughter but with your wife too. Show her pictures of you at her age. Remind her everyone changes as they get older, even her hot boy crush. And that she better be careful where she's throwing insults because after all she does have 50% of your genes. Not the asshole. Wife is ta. As for the daughter, I give that a kid pass. She probably didn't really mean to cause offense. Women tend to underestimate how self-conscious men are about their appearance. They're taught that caring about how you look is a girly thing. Teens that age still sometimes have the brutal honesty. Children, being a teacher can be rough. Just don't be emotional about it. It might make a fight. I think tonality has a large part of this, where it may have fed a lot of your insecurities. It may have been a harmless joke. Equally, she's a teenager. The majority of teens are shallow. I definitely was at her age. To focus on every cloud having a silver lining, she won't be bringing any middle-aged men home anytime soon. Going for nah. You are correct. Reinforcing or ignoring this type of behavior will end up in your daughter becoming a bully. If she disrespects you, then what's stopping her from disrespecting her peers? It is also unfortunate that your wife does not see the issue here, probably because she was fortunate enough not to be on the receiving end of bullying during her prime. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. That's first of all blatantly disrespectful, but secondly your daughter needs to learn when she's being hurtful. You're absolutely right to tell her, because she's clearly not fully developed her ability to be compassionate or have empathy. There's a phase where that can be common with teens, but it needs to 100% be called out. I'm sure she'll bitterly regret being so hurtful in the future. And remember kids have a limited scope on what makes someone beautiful. They have a narrow and shallow view for many reasons, which most grow out of. I bet you're fantastic, don't take it to heart. She's 15. Of course she wants the 6'4" water polo player with the six-pack and not the guy who somehow looks 50 despite being in the same grade as her. Plus she's still figuring out her humor style. She might be very April from Parks and Rec deadpan funny. I am in my 20s and I tease my DSD about being bald quite often. I don't think he's insecure about it. However, if you are, there are tons of ways you can work on it, and I don't think you should be dragging your kid into your own insecurities. Sure, you should say, "Hey kiddo, what you said the other day really hurt my feelings. I guess your old dad is just feeling a bit insecure," and let her apologize and leave it at that. And from there go on your own personal journey of figuring out how to feel better about yourself. Nah. Before she said anything though, my wife chimed in teasing that guys were always so sensitive. Yeah, and I'm sure if you mentioned that your wife would be more attractive if, I feel like if I give actual examples I'll get banned, she wouldn't have reacted, sensitively, at all. Not the asshole, you Ricky Gervais looking king. But remember, regardless of what your daughter says or thinks about your appearance, you've spent past 15 years showing her how a man is supposed to treat his partner, and she absolutely will be looking for a guy who has those qualities. Not the asshole at all. There's teachable moments here for both your daughter and your wife. You have every right to be upset by your wife's reaction, and it's quite shocking that an adult is being that dismissive about this. Not the asshole. They comment was quite rude and hurtful, and your wife saying you are being too sensitive is really bad. She's not validating your extremely valid, true feelings. Maybe it's because I grew up in an Asian household, but it was really weird to talk about how handsome, beautiful their parents are. Whenever someone talks about me looking a lot like either of my parents, I unintentionally make an ew face. Even though I can retrospectively acknowledge and agree they're both decent-looking people, I can't personally see myself being like, wow, they can both get ITTTT. I wouldn't want to end up with a guy that looked like my dad either. Just seems gross to me. But that's probably because I also just don't wanna bang my father. Not the asshole. You should sit her down and have the discussion about feelings. Ask how she would feel if you insulted her. Especially with a subject she feels insecure about. All kids have to learn that looks aren't the most important thing. Sounds like your wife needs this lesson too. WTF is wrong with your wife LMAO. She sounds like a complete and utter asshole. Not the asshole. Nah. You're feeling insecure about your weight and your daughter pointed it out. She was being honest in a space she should be. You are hurt by their comments, so start losing weight, get hair plugs and see if they still say those things about you. I think this is a wake-up call. Not the asshole. Geez, that was so rude of your family to say. Before she said anything though, my wife chimed in teasing that guys were always so sensitive. Okay, your wife is definitely the asshole here. My daughter laughed. And so is your daughter. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. And although your daughter is old enough to know it's not okay to be mean, your wife made it even worse. She really should have had your back when you told your daughter what she said was not nice. And no, you're not going crazy over something that's not a big deal. It might not seem like a big deal now, but your daughter really should learn that body shaming and not being nice is never okay, even if it's your own father, especially since you didn't find it funny. That's where you draw the line. It's only a joke as long as the person being made fun of finds it funny. Doesn't make a difference if everyone else is laughing. If you make someone uncomfortable with your joke, you stop and apologize. Not the asshole. It is okay to cry, it doesn't matter what gender you are, dude. NTA. Your daughter has been shallow, and your wife is supporting it. She probably is so in love with this guy that only sees his good points. Do not judge her. All of us have been in this situation, and it's good to talk to her that she cannot point things in others' appearance without them asking her to, because her opinion is just her opinion. Talk with her and tell what you have to say as her father, and expose your feelings as a human. Good luck. Not the asshole. That was quite rude and demeaning. You should definitely have a talk, but I'd say keep it simple. More of a, hey, that really made me feel uncomfortable, bad, whatever. I don't see being pissed about it working. Possibly it was a joke that came of badly, but even if not, you'll never know until you start. Nah. And #X200B. Are you sure she wasn't joking? I make fun of my dad for being bald. I think you need to address your insecurities, maybe talk about them with your wife. Why are they being so rude? What on earth? Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Talk to your daughter one-on-one about how it hurt your feelings though. Your wife is obviously no help. Your daughter obviously learned that behavior from her mother. Not the asshole at all. Sounds like your wife is raising a giant nightmare. Who TF calls their own parents ugly? And who is your wife to think that kind of behavior is okay? Sounds like you have two 15-year-olds living with you. NTA. And since I haven't seen it noted yet, ask your wife if she's ever thrown a "what do you mean?" reply at someone who has said something sexist, racist, etc. It's a common, non-aggressive tactic used to either push the person who said the offensive thing to double down on the offensiveness, as your daughter did, or STFU when they have to expand on what they said and realize the offense, inappropriateness, or reword their statements if there was a misunderstanding, miscommunication. You were doing this. You should have been able to follow up with a simple, hey, that hurts my feelings. And opened a convo with your daughter about all of the things that come from making those type statements. Not the asshole. This kind of behavior is pretty par for the course for a teenager. Most teens have a pretty underdeveloped understanding of empathy. Your wife is the real asshole here. She's a grown woman who's telling her life partner, get over it, when your feelings are hurt. It's my opinion that that's never the right answer when someone comes to you hurt. Not the asshole. In a native Alaskan tribe they teach empathy by asking their very, very young kids to hit them and then saying, ouch, that hurt. Why did you hurt me, don't you love me? In a teasing way. This is all based on my recollection and I apologize if I got any wrong. But this may be a way to get your daughter to understand her words. Not the asshole. But my wife was also materialistic at that age but grew out of it on her own. Is that your wife telling you that she settled for you? Because that might explain why your daughter thinks it's okay to insult someone on their appearance. You're asking if you're an asshole for feeling something? There's zero conflict here and you literally just plan on telling her you're offended. How has this not been taken down by the mods? I remember when I mocked my dad's appearance, specifically his baldness, and he called me spotty in retaliation. Still remember, 17 years ago. Dunno if it was the right thing or not. I did know better, but I assumed he would have taken my mockery in good humor. It might be that dads are good-humored about it so often that kids think they're immune to being upset about being called ugly. Not the asshole. I'm glad you aren't going to punish her and will discuss your feelings with her instead. Teenagers often don't know how shallow they sound and rarely are they aware of the effects that their words have on other people. It's disappointing that your wife didn't care about teaching your daughter not to be so insulting about the appearance of others. Not the asshole. If I said that to my father when I was a teenager, there would have been immediate consequences. I'm sorry she hurt your feelings, but this goes beyond that. If she thinks it's okay to treat people like this and her mother brushes it off as teasing, that is a real problem. Not the asshole. You need to teach your daughter that's not right or she will be a bully. She's 15, there's a good chance she's already had experiences in school where she's either been bullied or bullied someone. She's not 5 and just says what comes to mind. She knows what she said was hurtful and didn't show remorse. And your wife doesn't have your back and that would hurt a lot. Me and my kid's dad are split, but if one of our kids called us ugly or insulted us, we would have each other's backs and not stand for it. Sit down and talk with your daughter, and if she's still being hurtful, then think about an appropriate punishment. Not the asshole. I've become fond of the phrase. Would you like to rephrase that? It won't help with your wife, but it might be useful with your daughter. Your daughter will learn that people tend to put on weight over the years unless they have either amazing discipline or an extremely strong motive to avoid it, and then they may resort to unhealthy measures to preserve an image. Alas, that lesson might not be learned for years. Height and hair are less within anyone's control, unless one is vain enough to go for Rogaine, hair implants, or comb-overs that don't fool the presidential press corps. Not the asshole. If she said that about your wife, I doubt your wife would have just ignored it. Yikes man. Sounds like your wife, as she acknowledges, sees herself in her daughter's nasty attitude. Not the asshole. Edited to add. I love short, round, bald guys, though those aren't my go-to descriptors, for the record. You are attractive. Not the asshole. But when you're a 15-year-old girl, older, balding, chubby men are definitely ugly. You know what's attractive? Being able to laugh at yourself. Don't burden your daughter with your insecurities, be a role model instead.